Joining us now from Washington is Amjad Atallah. He is the co-director of the Middle East Task Force at the New America Foundation. Thanks for being here with us.
Thanks, Betty. Good to be here.
Well, we have seen similar anti-government protests in Tunisia and other places in the Middle East. Why are we seeing this upheaval now?
I think it's a combination of factors. I mean, the system in the Middle East has always been fragile. It's been sustainable because there's a strong police state in every country, and they're mostly supported by the United States. And that combination has helped a very fragile system last a long time. But the victory in Tunisia, the ability of the Tunisian people to have a relatively peaceful, nonviolent uprising that overthrew a dictator, that has had repercussions, and the fact that everybody can actually watch it happening. In the past, this would have happened and nobody would have covered it. This time around, world news coverage has given it a lot of attention, especially the Arab news media, Al Jazeera in particular, and that's caused the ripple effect. As people have seen what's happening in one state, they've actually said to themselves, maybe this is the time for us.
Well, you know, we also heard that the United States isn't saying if it still supports Hosni Mubarak, which is at the center of this protest. What should we make of that silence, per se?
You know, the good news is right now that the people in Tunisia, when they were demonstrating, were neither asking for the United States to help, nor were they blaming the United States for the dictator that the United States had been supporting for all this time. And in Egypt, I think we're seeing something similar right now. The anger of the public is at the president of Egypt. It's not at the United States. At the same time, everyone knows that the United States has been supporting the President Mubarak. And so, I mean, in a way, I think it's the Obama bounce. I mean, we're getting goodwill that we didn't necessarily deserve through our policies, and that's a good thing for us. But the question, I think, for the United States is, how do we walk away slowly from the people that we've been supporting for so long and allow this process to take its course, but at the same time not appear to be abandoning them?
Let's talk about the people for just a second. We want to know, give us some perspective here. Who are the protesters and what do they want?
Well, what's been, I think, really important in both the demonstrations in Tunisia, which are still ongoing, and the demonstrations in Cairo, which are also ongoing, and in Egypt, not just in Cairo, is that they're people from all walks of life. It's not a particular party that's leading the demonstrations. It's not a particular organization that's leading the demonstrations. It's young people, it's older people, it's family, it's women, it's men. I mean, this is important. And Tunisia is a very secular society, and you saw a lot of women participating in the demonstrations. Cairo is a far more conservative society, and you also see women out there in the demonstrations, participating in the demonstrations. And so in that sense, it's actually a reflection of the society as a whole. In Egypt, they're making a big point of saying that this is Muslim and Christian Egyptians fighting for reform and fighting for freedom. That's a very important trend in Egypt and in Tunisia.
But what kind of reform and what kind of freedom? Are we talking about seeing democratic governments pop up throughout the Middle East?
Well, I don't know if anyone knows what the outcome of any of these efforts are going to be. Certainly people want freedom and certainly they want democracy, but what they mean by it is probably up for grabs. There's probably a million different definitions of what people think reform is going to give them. But I think that the outcome has to be that they have a voice. The outcome has to be that they are able to be part of a representative system that they help choose and that they can help put in power and help remove from power through peaceful means. That's the minimum.
Okay, but at the same time, could this instability give Islamic fundamentalists a foothold in these countries?
Well, I think that the governments have used this Islamic fundamentalism as a boogeyman for a very long time to try to continue having support from the United States and other Western powers. You know, support our autocracy, and if you don't, Muslim fundamentalists will take over. And if what we're seeing right now is, in fact, that Muslim fundamentalism doesn't have a grasp or a hold, at least in Egypt, and it doesn't have a grasp and a hold in Tunisia. I don't know if we could say the same things perhaps for countries like Pakistan, but in the Arab world right now, it does look like the Islamic fundamentalist parties are just watching this. They're participating as individuals, but the political parties themselves aren't participating as a party.
I want to shift to Gaza for just a second because there were also protests there this week against the Palestinian Authority. They were sparked by an Al Jazeera report that the Palestinian Authority made a number of concessions to Israel during peace negotiations. Will these revelations set back the peace process?
Well, I think that the peace process was moribund to begin with. So it wasn't as if there was a peace process. There were no negotiations taking place. So there's nothing necessarily to push back on. I think what the Palestinians are more concerned about is not the revelations that the Palestinian negotiators made concessions. I think people were actually quite familiar with most of the concessions, maybe not the details, and maybe not how they were talked about. Maybe that was very distasteful to people. But I think the idea that concessions had to be made in order to have a two-state solution, that a lot of people in the West Bank and the Gaza understood. What I think they're less comfortable with is the level of cooperation between the Palestinian government in Ramallah and the Israeli security services and the United States on issues that affected Palestinian lives. And I think that that's going to have a long-term impact on the ability of the negotiating team in Ramallah to actually be able to represent the Palestinian public as a whole.
All right, Amjad Atallah from the New American Foundation, we really do appreciate your insight this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.